Uyo, uko, kuno, abo, bano. Mama wanna get it, mama wanna get it nice. I know food I miss, I know food I TV, I know kaya Marie.
And today I am broadcasting from my new environment. So it's going to be having a lot of echoes until we sort out the issues with my move. I've moved all my furniture to a new place. So it's going to be very, very different sounding. So I want to quickly do this. And I also want to appreciate that we are at a very sensitive stage in Zimbabwe. The events that are going to occur in the next 15 days, you have never seen such events in your life. And we'll be here to unpack everything as it happens. Specifically, I want to look at the thinking that is taking place in the minds of the two top candidates. That is CCC President Nelson Chamisa, who is the front runner, and ZANU PF President and Zimbabwe President Mnangagwa. So what you have to understand is that the campaign of ZANU PF, they are in a great panic because Chamisa has been doing very, very well. I've said this over the past few weeks. And what is going through the minds of President Mnangagwa is, how do I deal with what is going to happen next? So if you look at the Zambian scenario, there was a lot of looting on the last few days of Edgar Lungu. There was a lot of commotion in Zambia. And there was even a bit of unrest where some people lost their lives. And this is the current situation in Zimbabwe. But in Zimbabwe, it's different because the current government in Zimbabwe does not want to leave office. They do not want to leave office easily. And Chamisa is not going to be allowed to just walk into the presidency. There is going to be so much that is going to happen within the next 2 weeks. And as I said, the things that are going to happen, you've never seen such things, because Mnangagwa and his party ZANU PF, they are certainly going to be losing this election. President Mnangagwa has not done enough over the past 6 months. The economy has collapsed even further. And to make matters worse, Nelson Chamisa has become extremely popular in the rural areas. He has gone everywhere in terms of the rallies that he's held. Dr. Fedias Mteneri is going to come back over the weekend and show you what Chamisa has done. This campaign of Nelson Chamisa has been simple and effective, whereas the campaign of ZANU PF has been confusing, and at times you would not understand exactly what they're doing. You cannot, right now, if I say what's the message of ZANU PF in this election, you cannot tell. And at the same time, while they're focusing on things that does not affect ordinary people, Chamisa has been hitting on the right spots in terms of what needs to be done in Zimbabwe. So that is the scenario that we have now, the situation that we have currently in Zimbabwe. We have a current president that is on the verge of a loss, 10 days away from the election. And with the opposition leader who is extremely popular. And if this election is held, it's almost certain that Chamisa is going to win this election. So now let's go back to what I started with. What then is going through the minds of President Mnangagwa and the people around him? Certainly, they're thinking, how do we stop this election? That is the key thing that is in their minds. They do not want to go into this election because if they go into this election, they're going to lose. And they have created certain traps for Nelson Chamisa before the election. But there's an even bigger trap that they created for Chamisa after the elections. So the first trap, and this is where we bring in Douglas Mwonzora. Mwonzora has made 2 announcements this week. The first announcement is that he's going to be boycotting the presidential election. But during the stage of boycotting, he said some very, very powerful things. And I always encourage people that when someone is speaking, you must listen very, very carefully. And Mwonzora, those 14 minutes that he spoke were the most powerful minutes of Mwonzora. But I want to show you the part that I want you guys to understand so that I don't tell you hearsay. And this is from site. My friend Ndebele, he featured this. And I want us to listen to what Mwonzora is saying here because it's very important to what I want to say.
Our constitution provides that once the election dates have been declared, there must not be change in electoral law. But contrary to all this, just last week, there was promulgation of a statutory instrument to govern postal votes, to govern an aspect of this election. And this is totally illegal. There is no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, that this election is not free and it's not fair. The election management body has not displayed the requisite impartiality and fairness expected of it. It has acted vindictively and in a partisan manner.
Right, I don't want to take a lot of time. Please go and watch that video where Mwonzora made some very, very interesting statements. The whole interview is full of traps for Nelson Chamisa. But let's look at specific problems that we have currently going into this election. The first thing is that Mwonzora has announced a demonstration against ZEC and a demonstration against the judiciary. You can go to gambako.com, you see that announcement. They've gone to the police, and the demonstration is going to be on the 17th of August. That is barely 6 days before the elections. That is a very interesting timing for the demonstration. And let's look at the first thing that Mwonzora said, that ZEC has acted vindictively, they've acted illegally. And I'm going to give you what I think is going to happen. Mwonzora is going to try to go on the street. He's made the announcement. Either the government allows him to demonstrate or not, but that is not the issue. The next thing that is going to happen is if Mwonzora is stopped, he's still going to go to court and says that these things were done illegally. Right now, as you speak, Seveka Sukuwere was in court also trying to stop the election. But I have a feeling that Mwonzora is going to succeed with his court bid to stop the elections. And the reason why I say that is that I don't think Mwonzora is acting on his own when it comes to what he's doing. Firstly, Mwonzora is in Poland. I think I want you guys to understand exactly what I'm saying here. When you're in Poland, you could pick up the phone and phone President Mnangagwa. He's in the dialogue. If there's something wrong with the elections, if he's not happy with something, you could phone President Mnangagwa immediately and you get an answer. He's got other channels that he could follow if he wanted to complain about the elections. He's gone to court and he lost against ZEC. So it's not like he was not heard. He was heard. So what Mwonzora is doing here is a way of actually disrupting the elections. He's not interested in the justice of the elections. Why do I say that? He did not field 210 candidates. He fielded 84 candidates. So even if Mwonzora had been allowed to take all his candidates and put them in the election, he was still going to have only 84 candidates. So all his reasons that he's saying, they're not valid. The only reason why Mwonzora is going out now to try and do a demonstration is in support or together with the government of ZANU PF and President Mnangagwa, because they do not want to go into the election. And why do I say that? Let me go give you more reasons. When he boycotted the election, he had a choice. He could have said, I don't want to do the election. Everyone go and vote for Nelson Chamisa. He could have said that they were in the same party barely 2 years ago, but he did not. Mwonzora chose to support no one. He's not in the election. He says he's not in the election, but he did not choose to support Nelson Chamisa. If he wanted, he could have said, my people go and vote Chamisa, but he did not. So his intention is very, very clear. He's going to want to disrupt the elections. So that is one clear point, and he's working with President Mnangagwa on this. ZANU PF totally doesn't want to go into this election. If they go into this election, they're going to lose. It's clear, and it's only 14 and 15 days away. You are watching me here. I'll be back here in 13 days, and we'll be talking about this. If ZANU PF goes into this election, they're going to lose. So, well, ZANU PF not as a party. I want to clarify that. ZANU PF as a party, they could do well. They've got quite a lot of support in a lot of areas. But President Mnangagwa as a candidate going one-on-one against Nelson Chamisa, it's almost impossible for him to win against Chamisa. And ZANU PF and their strategists, they are well aware that President Mnangagwa will not win this election against Chamisa. And also, they know that if Chamisa wins, there will be an explosion. That is well known. If Chamisa was to win the election today, there will be an explosion against the ZANU PF leadership. The current ZANU PF leadership, they have got a big challenge ahead of them if Chamisa wins the election. In fact, when Chamisa wins the election against President Mnangagwa, they've got a big challenge. They are going to be chased from, people are going to be after them. So this takes us to the next point. What would you think if you know that in 12 days' time, people are going to be chasing you? What do? You set some traps, and the trap here is the GNU trap. The GNU trap is the biggest trap that President Mnangagwa is setting for Nelson Chamisa. And let's look here at the demonstration. Let's start with the demonstration. And I want to give you a possible number of permutations of what could happen here. Let's say the demonstration is allowed on the 17th, 6 days from the election. What would I do if I was ZANU PF? I'll get 100 of my guys to come into the demonstration. Mwonzora says there'll be 3,000 people. Okay, let's say ZANU PF brings 20 buses. That's 75 times 20, 1,500 people. And they go into the demonstration. Cause as much chaos as possible. Cause the soldiers to be deployed. Cause a state of emergency, something like that. That's one permutation. Second permutation is nothing happens. The demonstration goes ahead. Mwonzora is ahead, that the whole thing was wrong. He goes to court. He wins in court, and the election is stopped. And everyone points and said, you saw Mwonzora, I went to the demonstration, the election must stop. The president then has to declare a new date, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, how many years to come. Because remember, I was talking to one of the legislators today. There is a bill in parliament for election reform, which was suspended in parliament because they could not complete that bill. They said that the time is over, the election is too close. So they stopped the election reform bill, but they went ahead with this civil servants vote, diaspora vote bill, which means Mwonzora could easily go and point to those facts, win in court after his demonstration. So whatever happens, the possibility of an election stopping is very, very high. If there's violence during that demonstration, then the state of emergency can be declared. The election could also be stopped that way. Or the election would be held in such a state that eventually everyone is heightened up. There's a heightened tension across the country. They have to deploy more soldiers across the country. Everything that is going to happen will result in the election either being held under very difficult conditions, or being stopped, or being suspended. And this will allow Nelson Chamisa to go into the election weakened. Why? Because if he's going in that election under a state of emergency, do you know what the rural guys will do if they see soldiers on the day of the election? Either they're not going to vote, or they're going to be afraid and they vote the wrong way. If you wanted to vote left, end up voting right. If you wanted to vote Chamisa, end up voting for ED. These are real things in the rural areas. So Mwonzora's strike or demonstration is very, very dangerous. It's meant to play into the end of this election as we know it. It's not going to be a normal election that you expect to hold. So this is the trap. The trap is the genuine trap. Chamisa goes into the election. He doesn't get as much votes as he was supposed to get. And the guys who are in the current government can now negotiate. Because this is all about negotiation. You don't want to run. The guys don't want to run. And they know that if they do not fix this situation ahead of the election, they're going to have to run come the 23rd or the 24th. They're going to run. So Chamisa is going to be pushed into a position of weakness. Basically, this is it. Stopping the election, or in one or two ways, or putting Chamisa in a position where he has to negotiate and the guys getting his exit instead of running come to 24th of August. Because 24th of August, it's going to be very different. You're going to find out that all over the country, people have voted in ways that you did not expect. So this is the situation that we have. So let me go to what Chamisa should do. Right, the GNU trap. If I was Chamisa, what would I do? First and foremost, I would cast my vote, if I was Chamisa, on the 23rd in the morning. Then I would disappear out of Zimbabwe. I'll just go to my friends in South Africa, or in Zambia, or in Botswana, and I'll wait there. Because I do not think it's going to be easy. What is going to happen there? And I would not allow myself to be put into any of this, or to be maneuvered into GNU. That is one thing that Chamisa should not do. He should not be maneuvered into GNU. When people vote for Chamisa now, they want total change. They don't want a mix of this party, ZANU PF and CCC. People want a complete change. And if Chamisa was to allow himself to go into GNU, going into this election, then he's going to be to have betrayed the people. Right, excuse me, I'm in a new place here, and the weather here is something else. Right, so this is where we are. We basically have a situation right now where I would estimate that the election has got a 70% chance of not happening. So you can quote me on this within the next 10 days. So between now and next Monday, a lot is going to happen. We're going to be analyzing this every day. A lot is going to happen. And people are thinking, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my house? What's going to happen to my car? What's going to happen to my farm? What's going to happen to my 500 cattle? This is where these guys are, the guys in ZANU PF. If the guy is ZANU PF right now, he's not sleeping. There is no one in ZANU PF right now who's going to sleep thinking about my job. Remember, everyone is going to get moved around. Look what happened when Hakainde Hichilema got into office. A lot of people are going to lose their positions. A lot of people are going to be pushed out of the comfort zones. And everyone in ZANU PF is just thinking that way. What is going to happen to me? And if I was Chamisa, you're going to press those guys. I want those guys to be pressed. You make sure that they don't have a moment of comfort. That is how you become a president. You don't become a president by being easy on these guys. You go hard on the guys that are coming out. They must not maneuver Chamisa. He must maneuver them. So at the moment, what they're trying to do is to maneuver him before the elections. And he needs to maneuver them. That's why I say on the day of the election, if I was Chamisa, cast my vote and I'll be out of Zimbabwe for the first day, for the first 24 hours before the elections are announced. I won't be there at all. I'll be back after everything is settled down, after everything is cleared up, because he's going to get a visit or two before he knows it. You saw what happened this week. I think it was actually this morning in Ecuador. One of the presidential candidates there was assassinated. There are a lot of things that could happen during this election, and you don't want to have this same thing happening in Zimbabwe. People are very, very desperate at the moment. Right, so I want to wrap this up, and I think I've been talking for, let's see how many minutes here, a few minutes, and we want to wrap it up under 20 minutes. Let's go to Savaita. You're saying, am I on the right channel? Is this Gambakwe for real? I only talk the truth. I don't support anybody. And also, remember what it's election time. I have to give people exactly what I think. This information I'm giving you is useful to both ZANU PF and CCC. If I tell you that Chamisa is being pushed into GNU, do you know what Chamisa is doing right now? He's listening, how do I not get pushed into GNU with the guys who've been pushing Zimbabwe down for 43 years? Do you know what ZANU PF is thinking? ZANU PF is thinking, what do I do not to run? Exactly this thing that I'm telling you, that's exactly what is in the mind. And Chamisa is feeling like someone who just got a new job. You know how you feel when you just got a new job? Your head is buzzing. You don't know what to do. You don't know what's going to happen. And you can't believe, you want to pinch yourself. This is where Chamisa is right now. His campaign has gone very, very well, more than anyone can expect. ZANU PF has made so many errors, especially the errors they made 6 months ago when we told them to launch a new currency, allow cash in the ATMs, allow people to trade, all those kind of things that we're telling them, and they didn't do them. This is what is happening now. There's a point of no return that has been reached. ZANU PF cannot do anything right now about this election. The only thing they can do is to stop the election. If they fail to stop the election, they're going to lose. So let's move to the next. Philip, yes, Chamisa Pinda. Let's go to Bernard. Bernard is saying, you're assuming that you think and see on behalf of Zimbos. Your Chamisa said something in the same job. Okay, I want to talk about sanctions. You know that I'm against sanctions. But did you ever see any ZANU PF campaign where they actually talked about sanctions? The only time they talk about sanctions is when they talk about Chamisa. What about the engagement? Did they do any re-engagement? Did you see them talking about re-engagement after the first year? So this is not something that is important to Zimbabweans anymore. Let me tell you the important things to Zimbabweans. They want money, they want jobs. They want food on their tables, they want clean water, they want electricity, they want Wi-Fi that works, they want internet that works in Zimbabwe. All these simple basic things, that's what people want in Zimbabwe. They don't want roads, they don't want airports. ZANU PF has been totally lost going after these things in the air when people want things on the ground. So mark my words, the sanctions issue, we can talk about that very, very easily. If Chamisa gets into office, within a few months, sanctions will be gone. Not because Chamisa put the sanctions there, but because it's so simple to remove sanctions. If you want to remove sanctions, do the 1, 2, 3 things that are required and sanctions will be out. And don't try to use the sanctions to campaign. ZANU PF guys, they're not worried about sanctions at all. Right now, they're worried about how do they save their skin? How do they prevent themselves from being torn to pieces by people on the 24th? Now, let's look at Sandra is saying, Masoja, Avachada ZANU PF. Okay, let's talk about force intelligence. A lot of CCC guys have got force intelligence. Like they get information from the wrong sources. A soldier does not think the way that you think. Okay, hear me very well. A soldier, they give him his gun or they lock it up. He does not walk around with the gun everywhere. They tell him when to go to bed. They tell him when to walk in and out. So if they want to control soldiers, they will just lock them up during the elections. They will even tell them where to vote. You know this thing that's been happening. So soldiers are not your problem right now. Your problem is the ordinary people and mass action. Remember what I said, mass action is the only thing that ZANU PF is concerned about right now. If Chamisa gets 80% of the vote, that day, ZANU PF is finished. They won't be able to contain what is going to happen next. And that is where we are. This is why these guys will not allow that date of 23 August to come without an event. There will be an event here before that election. This is where we are. Now let's go to, I want to look for my brother here. He's always giving me interesting comments. Right, be safe, Mr. Chamisa. Yes, if I was Chamisa, I would be very, very safe. The things at stake here are big. What could happen here to ZANU PF? Some of these guys will end up in jail. You understand what I mean? Some of them will end up with nothing. It's not going to be simple. If I was ZANU PF guy, I will not just take this simply. And this is how we should be considering it. You should consider this as war. Now, basically, you win this election, it's war. The guys are not going to hand you the keys to State House. You're going to have to drag that key from the hands. And the only way to do that is you've got so much backing, so much support that they will hand you the key themselves. But they want to negotiate, so they're going to do this kind of things like sending Mwonzora here or making a fake demonstration and then planting their people into that fake demonstration, causing a bit of chaos there in the run-up to the elections, or even eventually canceling the election itself. This is on the table, so don't think that's not on the table. Let's go to, and I think you guys should also look at Hope Watching. He wrote a piece about how this whole case of ZEC changing the law in the last minute is going to affect the holding of the election. What happens if Mwonzora goes to court? So let's see if he's going to be allowed to go to court, and let's see if his demonstration is going to result in a state of emergency and violence. Right, I think I want to wrap it up here, and I'm so sorry about these echoes. We're going to have a bit of echo for a while because I've moved to a new place, and I'm going to be moving around quite a bit. However, I'll be in Zimbabwe on the 24th of August, and I want to see if Chamisa is going to be ready for the inauguration, or if the situation is what I think it is going to be. My prediction is that we're going to enter a period of extreme strife for at least 2 to 3 months. I'm giving 2 to 3 months. And as I said to you, we're going to have a President Chamisa, but we're going to have a very different parliament that's not controlled by Chamisa, most likely. So there'll be a lot of horse trading, but Chamisa has to make sure that he's not maneuvered into this thing. He must make sure that he's not the one who is being pushed. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I don't know how he's going to do that. He needs to be a very different kind of person. He needs to put away his pastor shirt and become a soldier. Because in Zimbabwe, you're going to have to run soldiers. You're going to have to outmaneuver guys whose only job is to destroy the enemies. Do you get what I'm saying? Someone whose job, since they will start to work in the morning to the evening, is how do I destroy my enemy? Mentally, spiritually, physically, anyhow. And you're going to have to fight that person. And I don't know how he's going to do it, but it will be done. I'm sure it will be done. There's been changes in other countries that we do not expect. But Zimbabwe is very, very different. I do not think Zimbabwe is similar to any country that you know. And you're going to see what I'm talking about within this next few days. Within the next 14 days, it's not many days. You can count it in these 10 hands, 10 fingers here. The days until you see what you've never seen before. The people of Zimbabwe have not gone through all this that they've gone through and gotten to this point for nothing. You know how long I've been sitting on this chair talking to you since 2018, since before 2018. And before 2018, it was 2017. My first interview with Mwonzora was in 2017. It's been years, people looking for change. I've met young guys here in South Africa. Mugabe was vicious. He did not allow people to campaign in Zimbabwe. So people fled to South Africa to have their interviews, to have their demonstrations. And I happened to be starting my media company at that time. So every person that started anything, Pastor Ivan, Trevor, these guys were coming down here, Mamjuru, Banana, all these guys were coming down here. I went to Violet Mariacha's house when she was starting the campaign. All these people, Makamba Busha, they had to do things here because Mugabe was an extremely ruthless person. But Mugabe was nothing compared to the guys that are there now. Because Mugabe, his only enemies were within. Now the current guys that are there, they are going to lose to the opposition. They are the first people, the first president who is going to openly lose to the opposition in terms of the numbers that you cannot change. Otherwise, you end up with 7 million. If you try to change those numbers, you end up with 7 million or 8 million voters when you're registered 6 million. This is what Chamisa's challenge is. Get your guys in Harare to go out. Get your guys in Bulawayo, in Mtare, in Masvingo, the cities. I don't know if you have to bust them or what. Get them to go to the polling stations and vote if that day arrives. Otherwise, it won't get there. And this is where we are. It's going to be an extremely interesting week that we are going to see. And ZANU PF does not know how to deal with what is going to come. And at least they know how to deal with it before it comes. But if it comes, they won't know how to deal with it. Right, guys, I've talked for so long, and we'll be back talking. Mkoma Samuel Danisa Mpov, I want you to mark my words. ZANU PF has some very great guys. Like in terms of resources, I know specifically that guys in ZANU PF have got resources. But the one thing that they lack is a connection to the ordinary people. So this connection that I'm talking about is what is going to make them lose. And your leaders, the guys that are in the top echelons, they understand what I'm talking about. They do not have an understanding of what it means to go for 15 years without money coming out of the ATM. So simple. Mozambique has got a currency. Zambia has got a currency. South Africa, Lesotho, every country. The only country where you cannot get money in the ATM is Zimbabwe. I've talked to young guys who've never worked, so I don't want to waste time talking about these things. You know these things that I'm talking about. This is where ZANU PF is losing because they fail to understand that you can build the road, the airport, the border, and all that. It's all good and nice. But if you fail to deal with the simple, ordinary things, you're going to lose the election. And when you lose the election, you're going to lose everything that you've got. So yes, that is it. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. There's a lot to cover. I would have loved to cover the manifesto of the CCC. So let me see if I will get someone to assist me. Give me a call if you want to assist me to cover it. And listen. Sorry about that. I lost my network. I think the ZANU PF guys are using their resources to take me out. A lot of people want to take me out, though. It's only God who have saved me so long. And I really appreciate the past 10 years of Gambakwe Media with no resources, with only my phone. This is what we've done. And some of the biggest YouTube channels in our country, those guys have came from Gambakwe Media. I can count at least 20 YouTube channels that have come out of Gambakwe Media, and I'm extremely proud of the guys who have worked with me, guys like Zigo, guys like Jetro, the other guys behind the scenes who have worked with us here to make this happen. And I really appreciate it. I also appreciate all the support I got from both sides. CCC guys, ZANU PF guys, they don't understand me. Because when I'm with you in your party, because of our culture as black people, you would think that I'm in your party. So when I'm with CCC guys, you think that I'm a CCC guy. When I'm with ZANU PF guys, you think that I'm a ZANU PF guy. Because that is how I was taught, to have respect for everybody and their beliefs. So that's why you see, I love everybody. I don't have anything against anybody. And I really enjoy the political conversations that take place. What I know is that every Zimbabwean, they've got one thing in common. They want our country to do well. Even ZANU PF guys, they want our country to do well. But most of the guys are so hungry, they can sell their own mother. That is how hungry they are. They can even do anything. And now we've gotten to a point where you will see what happens next week. Everyone is going to start loving each other again. And I hope that Nelson Chamisa understands the responsibility upon his shoulders. If Chamisa becomes president and he manages to put cash in the bank, put jobs to the people, make our country a pride, our passport, our pride. Do you know how much our kids are failing to do anything in life because of that green passport? If I tell you my stories of how that passport has made it so difficult for so many young people, you understand. Chamisa is on the verge right now of doing something that will free not only the people in Zimbabwe, but millions of Zimbabweans outside the country who are living in very, very difficult conditions. So it's a heavy responsibility for the young man to take up. And he is on the verge of doing that. If he does this, he's going to be greater than Mbuyane Sekuru Kaguru. He's going to be the guy who, when you mention him, you first of all mention Chamisa, then you mention all the other people. Because the job ahead is big. So it's a big job that needs to be done. Right. Thank you very much, everybody. And I really enjoy talking to you. We'll be back again very, very soon. Good night.
Mama wanna get it, mama wanna get it nice. I know food I so I know food I